Sicario, 2015 film made by Denis Villeneuve, a crime thriller centered around Mexican cartels and American operations against them. Now, I have seen Sicario before, I think 2 times already, but I had a chance to revisit it today with a friend and decided to make a video about it, which I guess isn't going to be so much as a straight review, but more of a recommendation with a bit of analysis. That said, I will try to avoid any direct spoilers to the story while giving you a good idea of what to expect from it and how to read this film. I think the latter part is quite important because I remember that I myself was not amazed by it the first time around, and it took me subsequent rewatches to fully understand what it is that it's doing so well and to appreciate the film more. Here we go then. So we open with the protagonist of the film, Kate Macer, played by Emily Blunt, who is an FBI agent in Arizona, specializing in hostage recovery. We meet her during one of her raids, but this time around, instead of hostages, she and her team, containing also her work partner, played by Daniel Kaluuya, find a weird sort of house that is on the one hand filled in between walls, literally, with body-bagged corpses, dozens of them, and on the other rigged with an explosive that ends up killing 2 of the policemen. So being as shaken and confused about the entire situation as we, the audience, are, Kate is taken to a debrief session, which turns out to be actually more of a recruitment meeting. A man named Matt Graver, played by Josh Brolin, informs her that he's setting up a cross-agency task force to get the people responsible, namely the cartels, the Mexican cartels. Kate agrees to go on this team. At this point, both she and we as an audience expect some exposition, some explanation as to what exactly is going on, what she will be doing. Instead, she is dragged along by Matt and his mysterious colleague Alejandro, played by Benicio del Toro, from one place to another, from one situation to another, never so much in control as not even fully aware of what exactly is going on around her. As the film progresses, we learn more and more about the operation itself and her role in it, and Alejandro's role as well, and his backstory. But all of those things, and that last part especially, we never learn fully and directly. We have to piece it together from single lines of dialogue here and there. So you can maybe see what I'm going to praise here, the fact that the story is presented in a clever way, never spoon-fed to the audience, never dumbed down. The audience, as well as Kate, has to do their best to keep up. But it goes deeper, because Kate, despite being the protagonist of the film, is not actually the hero of it. She is just the audience insert. We see the story through her eyes, but despite the fact that it may seem like it is going to be her story, it turns out to be an elaborate ruse, and the true hero is actually Alejandro. Kate is treated like a child throughout the entire film, with disdain and disrespect, just being kept in the dark by Matt. And when we finally learn why and find out what it does all mean, it all makes perfect sense. It really comes shining through what a brilliant move this was in terms of narrative structure to show us the movie this way. And in that way, I can't help but admire the script. It was written by a man called Taylor Sheridan, and this was actually his debut as a screenwriter. He has since gone and written 2 other movies, which together with Sicario make up a fantastic neo-western trilogy. Now, they're not actually a trilogy, they aren't directly connected to each other, but all of them tackle similar themes of law and lack of law, especially in certain areas of the US, which we might call generally frontier. Areas far from civilized cities, far from the reach of conventional everyday law. These movies try to ask the question, what are the people supposed to do in these places? Without law, should man make his own? So Sicario takes place around Mexican border with the US, Hell or High Water in rural Texas, and Wind River in an Indian reservation in Wyoming. All 3 are excellent movies in their own rights, and I cannot recommend them enough. Back to Sicario though, the script itself, even with the talented cast that I have mentioned, could still, I think, be done in a more standard way. But what makes the film stand out from other similar thrillers is the final product, the finished vision, which came through. And to describe it best, I'm going to use a brilliant comment that I saw on the web this one time. So the screenwriter thought that he was writing a crime thriller, but the director, the DP, which is the director of photography, and the composer all actually agreed that they are making a horror instead. And there is something to it, because the movie is excellent at building tension and this almost palpable sense of dread and unease. Yes, the subject matter itself is gritty and unpleasant and dirty, so it lends itself to it. But the combination of visual style and music truly brings all of that to light. It's not so surprising then when we examine who were the people responsible. So music was done by Johan Johansson, who has scored a bunch of other excellent films, including Arrival and Mandy, before his untimely death in 2018. Cinematography, that's Roger Deakins, widely considered to be one of the best, if not the best, working cinematographer in Hollywood right now. He has been working on films since 1980s, and some of his movies include The Shawshank Redemption, The Big Lebowski, No Country for Old Men, The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward, Robert Ford, Skyfall, and finally Blade Runner 2049, which finally gave him his Academy Award after 14 nominations over the years. You can see his touch, his personal touch here in the camera work. Some of the wide shots that include the huge skies of the Texas and Arizona plains are just paintings come alive. There's no other way to describe it. And of course, the man that is mostly responsible for the final vision, Denis Villeneuve, brilliant Canadian director, in my personal opinion, one of the absolute best directors working right now. He seems to not be able to make a single bad film, at least not yet. If we go through the list of his feature films, Incendies, Prisoners, Enemy, Sicario, Arrival, and finally Blade Runner 2049, and he's now working on an adaptation of Dune. So fantastic guy who I might do a separate video on some other time. Again, going back to the film at hand, I hope you can kind of see the point that I'm trying to get across here. So that this movie was done by extremely talented people, regardless of the element or aspect of the film that we look at. And the result is a tight, gripping piece of cinema. I really cannot recommend Sicario enough. I consider it to be one of the top movies of the decade, and in terms of crime thrillers, it really doesn't get any better.